Let's unpack a hypothetical conflict set in 2026 that completely upended the Middle East. We're talking about a war that in just 12 days shattered decades-old military strategies, created an almost unimaginable humanitarian crisis, and left behind a new, incredibly volatile reality. So how did this happen? How did it spiral so fast? And what does the aftermath really mean for the rest of the world? To really get a sense of the sheer force of the opening salvos, you don't have to look much further than this quote from former U.S. President Donald Trump. According to Saban News, when he was asked about the initial strikes on Iran, his rating wasn't just a perfect 10, it was literally off the scale. That right there tells you just how dramatic and devastating the tone was, right from the very beginning. And this wasn't just talk. The reality on the ground was immediate and brutal. Headlines just like this one started flooding in, capturing what this felt like for people in Iran. This wasn't some distant battle fought by proxies. This was the war coming straight to the capital, a direct, full-scale confrontation. Okay, so let's dive into our first section, the imposed war. See, this conflict got a very specific name inside Iran, one that's packed with historical weight. We're going to break down what that name means and walk through the timeline of those first crucial 12 days. The name they gave this war, it tells you everything. An analysis from Israel's Institute for National Security Studies, that's the INSS, noted that Iranians started calling it the Second Imposed War. Now, that's a direct callback to the horrific 8-year war with Iraq back in the 1980s, which is a foundational trauma for the entire nation. So for them to use this name, it signals a crisis on that same level, a war they felt was forced on them. And when you look at the timeline, it's just staggering how fast this all went down. It kicks off on June 13th, 2026, with this massive Israeli strike aimed at, crippling Iran's most important assets, its nuclear sites and missile facilities. Just 2 days later, by day 3, the United States is officially in the fight, which just ramps up the pressure immensely. And by the time a ceasefire is called on June 24th, only 12 days later, the whole game has changed. Which brings us to our second section, a region on fire. Because here's the thing, this fire was never going to stay contained. The initial strikes might have been the spark, but the entire region was like a tinderbox, and it didn't take long for the flames to jump way beyond Iran's borders.
This quote from the UAE's leader, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, just perfectly captures the mood in the region. Turkish media reported this, and it's so blunt, so direct. There were no illusions among the other leaders. Any hope of containment was gone. The whole region was now a hot war zone. And the chaos really did spread like wildfire. Suddenly, you had multiple fronts. In Lebanon, Human Rights Watch reported accusations of Israel using white phosphorus. Over in Iraq, you had explosions rocking the city of Erbil. Iran, for its part, struck back directly at the UAE, sending drones to hit Dubai's airport. And all the while, you still have the ongoing tensions with groups like the Houthis in Yemen stirring the pot. The war suddenly had no clear borders at all.
Okay, so behind all this strategy and the politics, there's the real cost. Section 3, the human catastrophe. And the toll this war took on ordinary people is just staggering. The numbers are hard to even wrap your head around, but it's so important we understand the true price that was paid. I mean, just look at the Gaza Strip, already a place of incredible suffering. This conflict pushed it completely over the edge. The Turkish news outlet Kars Manşet reported the number of people killed soared to almost 73,000. That's a truly devastating figure, especially in one of the most densely populated places on the planet. And the impact on children, it's just heartbreaking. UNICEF reported that more than 50,000 kids in Gaza were either killed or injured. That's not just a number, It's an entire generation lost, a scale of suffering that's almost impossible to fully comprehend. And of course, this tragedy wasn't just in one place. As that northern front with Lebanon got hotter and hotter, the human cost there climbed too. News outlets were reporting at least 217 deaths in Lebanon, pulling another country deeper and deeper into this crisis. So how do you even begin to summarize that level of suffering? Well, UNICEF found the words, unthinkable horror. I think that says it all, really. It perfectly captures what it must have been like for civilians in a war that just didn't spare anyone. While the politicians were debating, the real price was being paid in human lives. So what happens after a war this disruptive? What happens when the smoke clears? well, you're left with a brand new and honestly a much more dangerous reality. Let's get into the strategic fallout and analyze what this meant for all the major players. For decades, Iran's entire security strategy was built on this one idea: forward defense. The INSS analysis really breaks this down. The concept was simple: use your network of allies and proxies in the region, like Hezbollah, to fight your enemies far away from your own home. Create a buffer. Well, this 12-day war completely shattered that idea. For the first time, Iran got hit hard directly at home. And it proved that their core strategy had failed them. And the price tag for this war? Oh, it was astronomical. And the ripples were felt everywhere. Israel's direct costs were reportedly around 9 billion shekels. The U.S. turned around and approved another $6.5 billion in weapons shipments. And for the rest of us, the threat to the oil supply sent prices through the roof, with Brent crude rocketing past $119 a barrel, which sent a massive shock through the global economy. And that shock wasn't just about oil. Panic hit the stock markets around the world. Major indexes in Asia just tumbled. South Korea's Kospi fell almost 8%. Japan's Nikkei and Topix indexes took huge hits. It's just a crystal clear reminder that a war in the Middle East is never just a regional problem. Its economic fallout hits everyone. Now, in the aftermath, with Iran's government seriously shaken, its neighbors started making moves. Outlets like Middle East Eye reported that Turkey was actually drawing up plans in case the government in Tehran collapsed. They were getting ready to carve out a 30-kilometer buffer zone inside Iran just to protect their own border. It just goes to show how this conflict forced every single country in the neighborhood to completely rethink their own security. So, where does all this leave the region? Well, a short, brutal war has created a long, unstable, and very unpredictable peace. Let's wrap up by summarizing this new strategic landscape that's been born from the ashes. So here are the big takeaways, according to the INSS analysis. You've got Iran, which is now laser-focused on rebuilding everything that was damaged: its missile programs, its nuclear capabilities. Its whole forward defense strategy is in tatters. Then you have Israel feeling empowered, trying to forge a new regional alliance. And the result of all this? A Middle East that is far more unstable, where all the old rules of the game just don't seem to apply anymore. And that really brings us to the final and, frankly, the most unsettling question. All those old strategies, all those unwritten rules that kept a very fragile balance of power, they're gone. They're broken. So in this new, unpredictable world, with every side rearming and rewriting their playbooks, what's to stop the next small miscalculation from sparking an even bigger catastrophe?